In the middle of the music festival season and the associated weather, is it about to start raining transfers? This is Blue Monday, an Ipswich Town podcast. Hello, good evening. Welcome to Blue Monday, the news show, which kicked off last week. It's going to be a semi-regular new addition to your Blue Monday improved roster of shows for the forthcoming season. One thing that won't be changing for the forthcoming season. Good evening to you, Joe Fairs.
Good evening, Craig. Good evening, everybody.
Yes, well done. Well done. Hello to everybody in the chat. I will quickly get some of those up. Hello to John. Hello to Justin. Hello to Streaky. Hello, yes, to John again. I know Luke was there as well, so hello to you, Luke. Yeah, as I say, when there isn't going to be a midweek match, more often than not, Joe and I will be here to bring you the very latest news and kick off a discussion of any of those you guys who are watching live and want to listen to after the event. As I say, I think Rich is due to announce what our plans are for the forthcoming season in the very, very near future. What we're going to do this evening is initially we'll have a chat about last night's friendly in God's own country, North East Essex, against Charlton, where both Joe and I were in attendance. One of us was tucked up in bed while the other one was still trying to get out of the car park. Because strangely, there wasn't any streaming available for those of you who couldn't make it, albeit there was a camera there because Charlton subsequently stuck out very limited match highlights during the day today. But so Joe and I will have a chat through that. And then there's a bit more news to talk about, a lot of which happened to break while we were sat at what I shall call Layer Road, Joe, didn't it?
Yes, yeah, and signal wasn't amazing there. Traffic was even worse, sort of coming in off the A12 there. But we were sitting there, and someone said, "Oh, Broadhead's not on the bench today." And then I was getting some messages come through saying, "I think that's a good offer for Broadhead." And I'm thinking, well, what is a good offer? Because everything was coming through out of order to me. So, yeah, that broke them. We've obviously had the Hayden Hackney stuff, which has been rumbling on earlier in the day. So I guess we'll come to those after we've discussed the exciting pre-season friendly, where team-wise it was, I guess, almost a full second 11 now, and Murray Hutchinson is back in the fold. But that was big news, Murray being on the bench. But when you look at the side that you'd probably line up with against Auxerre, I'd imagine this is the second choice 11.
Yeah, well, let's quickly go through the lineup. So, as you say, Walton was in goal, but Ben Johnson was right back, wasn't he? And he'd been right back in the previous friendly, if not friendlies. Connor Townsend left, Wolfenden.
But we had signed Ashley Young since Ben Johnson.
We have
there,
indeed. Yeah. Keepray, the impressive Keepray, looks good every time I see him. On the left, a young centre midfield duo, Cameron Humphreys and Finn Barbrook. Ogbene continuing his recuperation from injury on the right. Connor Chaplin in his favoured number 10, and Jack Clark in his favoured left wing role, having been played on the right predominantly in pre-season so far. Ali Al-Hamidi, the lone striker. And as you say, Joe, about the subs bench, some people were flummoxed about the number of players on the subs bench, and B, probably the makeup of the subs bench, given we had two goalkeepers on there, and yes, as you say, some missing players, which transpires were for a number of various reasons.
Yeah, Harry Clark was one. I'd seen him as I was driving there. He was sort of undertook me on the Orwell Bridge coming over there, and he looked like he was in a rush to get to the ground. So I thought, oh no, is he late? Why is he not involved? But at this point, I hadn't seen the team, so I didn't know whether we'd played a stronger team against Colchester in the day. But it turned out that was an under-21 team we'd played there, and it turns out he's got a leg injury which he's having to go and have a scan on. But it sort of reported on TWTD and EADT that it's something that could keep him out for a significant amount of time. Whether significant is a month, 3 months, 6 months. You don't really know, but it's just more terrible luck for Harry Clark after he sort of played through that championship promotion season with Achilles that needed operating on, had those done. He's then didn't really get going for us. Went to Sheffield United, started well for them, playing every game, then got injured there, and he's ended up having more surgery with them. And now he's in a real, like I say, a real struggle again to get fit. And that could make up some minds with regards to what we do transfer wise and or probably transfer out wise rather than transfer in wise. Whether it's going to be the case already, we don't know. But yeah, not good for Harry. I think Jacob Greaves was ill. Darrow Shea wasn't on the bench. I don't know if Leif Davis was on the bench, but he was there warming up at half time, but didn't come on. And then Nathan Broadhead, as we mentioned, wasn't on the bench. But in good news, Amari Hutchison was on the bench.
Yeah, definitely. And good news as well was the pitch. The pitch was looking very, very lush, heavily watered, moist underfoot, which is probably very good news for both our women's team and our under-21s team, who will both be playing on it in the forthcoming season. It certainly looked an awful lot different to previous seasons there. I've been to a couple of games the last couple of years there, and it's been an absolute shambles of a pitch. And obviously, infamously, they had a lot of games called off, didn't they, in a certain period of time because the drainage was poor, associated with the bowling alley or whatever it was. They got the built next door, etc. But I thought last night the pitch looked in top-notch condition.
Yeah, and when Colchester were in it, I spoke to a couple of friends who were playing for them at the time, and they said that strip on the sort of opposite side to the dugouts was just so heavy that you just couldn't do anything on that side of the pitch. It was just like running in quicksand, running up and down there. So they originally narrowed the pitch to try and cut away from that, but it looks like they've narrowed the pitch even further there as well. It was there's so much room between the stand and the sideline there, wasn't it?
Yeah. I happened to spend a lot of my Sunday morning football career running in a very equivalent pitches to that, like running in quicksand, according to a lot of my teammates. So in terms of the first half, Joe, there wasn't an awful lot happened, really, was there? To be fair, there was a couple of nice exchanges, some very, very familiar looking patterns of play. The no-look Chaplin swing or hook down the left-hand side, albeit this time to Ogbene rather than to Burns, which led to a chance for Humphreys, didn't it? That was a nice move where Al Hamidi laid it off and knocked it back to Humphreys to a good shot and save. Not an awful lot for Walton to do, but in terms of that second string and their first half performance, what did you think of it?
Yeah, I thought we were the better side. I thought we played some nice bits at times, but I thought towards the last sort of 5-10 minutes and a half, I thought Charlton came into it and sort of pressed us a lot more effectively than they had been earlier on in the game. I thought we played out of that quite well. And bearing in mind, sort of when you look at the midfield partnership of Finn Barbrook and Cameron Humphreys, I thought Finn Barbrook especially had a really good, solid game in there, sort of took the ball well, moved it on, positioned himself well. And whether that's performance to sort of try and make McKenna sit up and take note, or a potential loan club, which I guess is more likely to sit up and take note, I think he'd have done himself a lot of good with that performance. But there wasn't really a huge amount happening in it. We had a couple of half chances. Ali Al Hamidi sort of struggled when sort of presented with the ball in front of goal a couple of times, and sort of set pieces, there wasn't much in them. I think it was quite, I guess you want to go for a fairly vanilla setup for your set pieces in pre-season. You don't want to stick anything on camera, which you want to be using in the league. And yeah, it just sort of was I'd say, decent enough game, but without a huge amount happening.
Yeah, that's right. If it looks like a pre-season game and quacks like a pre-season game, it's a pre-season game, isn't it? And that was very much the case at half-time. We got to the end of half-time, and a returning hero, Aro Muric, took to the pitch. Your thoughts on his welcome by a small minority of the Town fans, Joe?
I thought it was a disgrace. I think it's unbelievable how some people can act, and just the way it's like, what do they think they're gaining by doing that? Because they were sort of started off with a sort of gentle clap from a few fans, and then sort of I was in the north stand? I was in the end, the stand behind the goal, effectively.
South stand, yeah.
South stand, and the people behind me, you could hear quite audible boos, and it wasn't quiet. It wasn't 2 or 3 idiots. It was a lot of morons there doing it, and you just think, oh God, why are you here watching Ipswich Town if this is your reaction to one of our players coming on? Because you're not really a supporter, are you? If this is how you act, because it's in no one's interest for him. And it started when the game started. Every time the ball was rolling back to him, it's a bit like, oh, and sort of if he caught the ball from a corner or a cross, it was sort of like the sort of sarcastic whistles and bits like that. And I just think, I can't believe there's some fans act like that, and I'm sure it's none of the guys listening to this podcast, because people like that probably struggle to get their phone out of their pocket and press play.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. It's they're not, as Lynn says here, they're not proper fans. They're not supporters of the club. They're not supporters of that particular player, without doubt. But as you say, Joe, what is the mentality? What are you looking to achieve from doing it? I just beggars belief, but the poor old guy's just on a hiding to nothing at the moment. It's going to take some serious turnaround from his perspective.
I don't see any way back for him, because if this is happening in the pre-season, and the shame is when you see him play, like some of his passing from the back, it's a different level to what Alex Palmer and Christian Walton are able to do with the ball at their feet. It's really good quality. There's one where he sort of took the ball round one of their players almost and dinked it there, and but it's like one time he sort of rushed at a goal and sort of spooned it off for a throw in. But ultimately, he had to come out and clear the ball, and he did so. He made one fantastic save later on in the game, and it's just like he's a really, really good goalkeeper, but he's not going to be like he clearly had communication issues with the defenders, and concentration issues. But the Premier League has ate up and spat out a lot better goalkeepers than him over its time. And so you look at, like, without trying to dig Alex Palmer out, Alex Palmer made a load of errors, but he got away with, like, passing the ball straight to their player at Bournemouth, letting one roll under his foot against Wolves. And there was a few times when he made errors as sort of egregious as Aaron Muric did, but got away with them. And I guess, what's it sort of like? Nelson is better to be a lucky general or better to be a lucky goalkeeper than a good goalkeeper at times, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. And there's some of the comments saying here in the chat about he's statistically the best goalkeeper guy. And they would say there was that one ball, wasn't there, where he just absolutely pinged it like an arrow straight through the middle of the pitch into, I think it must have been George Hurst's feet by the time he'd come on, hadn't he? It was just, as you say, it's not something that the other guys can do. Anyway, we've been through it. We've made our points clear. I think most people in the chat have made similar points.
But like I say, you can want him to leave, want him to not play for us again. But if he is playing for us, you need to get behind him, or at least not do what was done by a minority of the crowd there. Like, you don't need to be clapping him and cheering him, but just keep quiet maybe next time. If that's all you're going to be able to put out there, just keep quiet.
Yeah, no, 100%. So in terms of the second half, obviously it got a little bit disrupted towards the end once the substitutes start being made. However, there was at least one very nice goal 5 or 6 minutes in. Cameron Humphreys nicked the ball off a Charlton and fed Jack Clark in a very familiar looking position from Jack Clark's perspective. And he ran and my mate Danny, who was sat next to me, was, go on then shoot. And about 3 seconds later, go on then shoot. And about 3 seconds later, go on then shoot. And he just kept running. And as opposed to curling it into the far corner, which he's done on a couple of occasions, maybe away at Coventry in the Cup, he went all the way into the box, people falling at his feet, and stuck it away. It's a nice goal, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was like Moses, wasn't it? But the partner of the red shirts rather than the Red Sea. He just kept going and going. And just by the time he shot, he almost couldn't miss by that stage. But because he worked it so well, and a really good finish across the keeper, really good goal. And I thought he was one that, when he gets on the ball, does stand out. And maybe at the moment he might be the sort of 12th man at the moment, so to speak, with regards to the first change. If it looks like if Hutchinson is staying, and you're going to be Hutchinson, Smodic and Philogene across the three behind the striker, but he's going to have a big opportunity to get himself into the team and make big contributions.
Yeah, definitely. You just, unfortunately, so far in his Ipswich career, he always just seems to be that 12th man, doesn't he? But hopefully he can play himself into consideration for a starting spot. I don't think it will do us any disservice in the Championship, that's for sure. The equaliser was a bit of a scrappy affair. I think it was a short corner, wasn't it, which was swung, and I think Cameron Humphreys misses the first contact, and then it bobbles around in the box a bit, falls to them, and which they slam past Muric. No real fault on his behalf, so probably just a scrappy one from our point of view, from a defensive unit. And then what turned up being the winner, we were pretty much sat looking straight across the pitch, in line with their centre defenders. And by the time Johnson had played it and we looked towards Al Hamidi, he was about 3 or 4 yards further on than their defensive line. But you can sort of make out from the replay that he potentially was being played onside by their left-sided centre half, shall we say. But he advanced and slid it past Kaminsky, didn't he? It's a nice finish.
Yeah, no, he took the goal really well, and I found it quite frustrating to watch in the first half because he just... I don't think it's his fault. He's just not on the level technically of the rest of the team. So when the ball comes into him, he can't... And you do have two big lumps, kicking lumps out of you as you're trying to do it, but he doesn't seem to sort of hold the ball up and bring others into play well. But when you're talking about making a run to get him behind, which is what he did here, and then a really good finish, sort of hit it pretty early and sort of really, really powerfully through the keeper's legs, and a really good goal, and sort of celebrated it well. He looked really pleased to have scored it, and his second goal in, was it 3 pre-season games for him now? And that's what you want. You want him you want your striker scoring goals, and whether that's because he's going to play a part at Ipswich Town this year, or whether he's going to get a loan move or elsewhere, if we're able to sign him better players than him this window, none of it can hurt. But yeah, no, they're really pleased for him to get the goal. But personally, I wouldn't say masterful performance, but I think it maybe there's a big drop off between George Hurst and him at the moment, and that drop off can't remain through the season.
No, that's right. It certainly can't remain if you're looking at him being your second choice striker. You might, if you're being very harsh, it can't remain. If you look at him being your third choice striker, really, I say he's one of a couple of players where we may have just progressed a little bit too far too soon, and who knows what's going to happen in the next month in terms of incomings. But you would have thought that the feelers are out for one, if not two, strikers, and then, as you say, Joe, you don't know where Ali Al Hamidi ends up, either permanent or temporary. But so we'll talk about some incomings and outgoings in a little bit. Apart from, you mentioned Jack Clark. Apart from him in our backup lineup, who produced the strongest evidence to push for a starting place, do you think, or at least a squad, a more permanent squad place?
I thought Cedric Kipre did really well at the back, and I think he will be able to put pressure on Jacob Greaves this year. I think it's one where we hope that Jacob Greaves doesn't need to be replaced at any point in the season, and that Kipre is there just as relief for him, because if Jacob Greaves plays like he did at the start of his spell for us, then he's going to be one of the best defenders in the league, and he was one of the best defenders in the league last time he was here. So I've done that side, but yeah, I thought Kipre did well. I'd say everyone else did fine in there, but I thought if you were looking at Finn Barbrook and Cam Humphreys as the two midfielders, I think you'd have put Finn Barbrook as the one who was ahead of them with Lee Spillandri, because I thought he was a lot more secure with the ball. I thought Cam Humphreys struggled a little bit, kept playing a few loose balls, a lot of unforced errors made in there. And I don't know what the midfield makeup will be. We'll want to go with 5 in there, but with Cameron Humphreys being an over 21 player these days and Finn Barbrook being an under 21 player, is there any chance potentially he's the 26th, 27th man in the squad and we try and find another move for Cameron Humphreys? I think it'd be a real shame, because he had a really good spell at Wickham and he could play in that 10 role. He can cover left back, which he's done that for the first team before in the Championship for us. But I don't know, probably just reading a little bit too much into one game here. But no, I thought Finn Barbrook was really impressive on that side. I thought Ogbene still looks a little bit off it. I thought he did some things well, but he doesn't look ready to start yet. I guess he'll start at Bromley in the League Cup in a sort of middle of the week after next, isn't it? So I guess that'll be a start for him, but it's going to take him a little while to get up to full speed on that. But I thought he did well. Connor Chaplin did some really good things, knitted it together nicely, drove the team on well. But I think that Amari Hutchinson and Sam Smollett's are going to be, and Jaden Philogene, I just don't see a way past those 3 players at the moment.
No. I think you're right. So I know you mentioned him at the start, but Kipre, so I'd have no issues with him coming out. Every time I've seen him this pre-season, he just looks a very, very decent championship level defender, which is exactly what we knew when we purchased him, I suppose. And yeah, very interesting point actually about the Barbrook and Humphreys situation. I hadn't really thought of it like that because, as you say, it's only the back of one performance, and by his own admission, just Cam Humphreys was just uncharacteristically sloppy with the ball last night. But it's one performance. But to your point, that jiggery pokery and the squad makeup, shall we say, and how you fit the right age players into your squad, and therefore, by virtue of being a year or two older, is he not permitted a space because Finn can not take up a space, if you see what I mean? It'd be interesting to see how we fit everyone in at come the end of January, beginning of September. We must chat about Amari Hutchinson, and while we do, actually, we must chat about Ashley Young, who came on at the same time as Amari did. And I thought from the first 10 seconds of them both being on the pitch, they both played down the right-hand side. For those who weren't there, they just seemed to have an understanding. And what was very noticeable, I mentioned it, I happened to be sat next to Sean from the Telegram group, completely coincidentally. And we both mentioned it about Ashley Young's passing. It was
the zip of it, isn't it?
Correct. Yeah. Just the crispness of his passing, and just those passes which Johnson may not see and Harry Clark may not see. He was pinging them into people's feet, just maybe 20, 30-yard passes along the floor into them. And by virtue of that, he just happened to my just speed things up a little bit. It was creating a bit of a buzz, a bit of zip in that area of the pitch, and obviously having Hutchinson in front of him, gave us a little bit more impetus down that right-hand side, didn't it?
Yeah, and I found as well that he sort of passed it to where people needed to be rather than where they were as well. He almost passed them into the right position by putting it an extra couple of foot away from where they were probably comfortable receiving it. He probably just pushed it that bit further. And I think there's one that, I think it was to maybe Chaplin, or he might have gone off before he went on, where it just sort of went through Chaplin. I thought, well, that pass was the right pass because he passed you away from your man. And had you taken that ball on, his pass alone had got you that half yard of space. But I thought to sort of mention Finn Barbrook again, I thought between Barbrook, Hutchinson and Young on that side, I thought there was some really nice passing. And I thought Barbrook, his passing seemed to have more zip into it when Young came onto the pitch, in that he was able to sort of play some first-time balls and work round corners there with them. And yeah, Amari, once again, as soon as he's on his feet, are just so quick, aren't they? So hard to defend against. He's just such a good player to watch, and hopefully we will be seeing more of him. If you'd have asked me 2 weeks ago, I wouldn't have thought that we'd have seen him in an Ipswich shirt again, where now it feels a lot more positive in that regard, doesn't it? Now Kieran McKenna, the player whisperer, has been into his ear.
That's right. Well, I was listening to Seb and Rich talking about it a couple of days ago at the weekend, and Seb has reduced his likelihood of Amari leaving, I think, from 80% to 75%. So I think Rich was probably a little bit more positive than that, actually. So yeah, the more that the window goes on, and you see the price that we're looking to obtain for him, you'd think that's going to be a little bit rich for a lot of teams in the Premier League, hopefully. So you don't know. Fingers crossed that's the way it goes. In terms of injuries, Joe, you mentioned it earlier, that Ogbene's still a little bit rusty and making his way back. Obviously, we've got Wes Burns, a long-term absentee, and you touched on it about Harry Clark. It will be interesting to know. Well, I don't know if we'll ever know the full details of how long he's going to be out for until such time as he's been out for that period of time. But it's not ideal timing for him, and it potentially has a knock-on effect, doesn't it? Because you may have thought that having got Ashley Young in, then we might think about if Johnson wants to move on and we can release his wage from the wage bill, then we've got the cover there in Harry Clark. But now it potentially puts a bit of a spanner in the works in that regard, doesn't it?
Yeah, and I guess Johnson's probably got a little bit more to hang around for, because we're going to need a second right back, whoever it is, whether it's Harry Clark or Ben Johnson. We're going to need somebody behind Ashley Young. And if Harry Clark's injured, it's not there. And with Burns being injured and Ogbene still feeling his way back to fitness, I guess Ben Johnson is probably a better fit for that right-hand right hand side role for the games where you want someone who can play more of a wing back role than a winger role. I don't think I think those games will be few and far between this year. But when we were in the Premier League last year, Ben Johnson, that really was his role in the team, wasn't it? There, and he played it a lot of times. He played it very well a number of times, like Chelsea away, especially. I thought he was excellent in that game, and Tottenham away he had a really good game in that role. So maybe it does just work that Ben Johnson is that sort of utility, sort of backup right back, plus also an option to sit until Ogbene's back to full fitness or Burns is back there, and then maybe we have a sort of rejigging around the squad in the January window.
Yeah, an expensive luxury.
Yeah, and it is, and I'm sure if we could get a decent offer for Ben Johnson, I think you'd probably take it, because he signed obviously a very good contract because he was on a free transfer, signed a 5-year deal here, and really it's a deal of what a starter will be earning, you'd imagine. So if he's not a starter and there is an opportunity to move him on, you probably do need to take it.
Yeah, agreed. Okay, perfect. Well, that's Charlton at Colchester crossed off. We'll a quick word from our sponsors, and then we'll be back to talk sexy stuff.
Blue Monday is brought to you in partnership with Atwell Solicitors, your ideal legal partner for property and business law. Whether you're buying a home, starting a business, or just need legal guidance, our dedicated team has got you covered. Trust our award-winning customer service team to handle your legal matters with care and expertise. Find out more at atwells.com or visit us at our offices in Ipswich, Colchester, London, and our new location in Woodbridge.
Wonderful stuff. In terms of, as I say, let's talk sex stuff. Let's talk transfers. Safe to say, Joe, you and I love a bit of transfer rumour and a few transfer stories. We'll take it in turn. We'll talk incomings first. So yesterday, things started to get a little bit real, didn't they? Depending on who you believe, a bid of between 15 and 20 million pounds was made, and then today, possibly, it was reported had been accepted by Middlesbrough for 23-year-old central midfielder Hayden Hackney. It's being reported that he is on his way to or travelling tomorrow down to Suffolk to have a chat with Kieran McKenna et al. Now, I'm going to ask you what sort of player he is, but should we pull it off, as it were, Joe? This is some statement of intent from the club, isn't it? And a potential record championship to championship transfer fee.
It is, and it is the biggest transfer. And I think the second or the current biggest one is a guy called Mike Trezor, who had a agreed transfer to Burnley, but never actually played for them. So you're really talking about players. You go back a long way when Middlesbrough themselves signed Britt Assombalonga for 15 million, or did Forest sign him from Middlesbrough? I can't remember, but it was Britt Assombalonga and Ruben Neves who were actual signings for their teams for that season to try and get out of the Championship. So yeah, it would break the record there. I think TWTD and EADT have it at 15 million pounds plus add-ons. The Middlesbrough press have it at 20. I think somewhere saw it at 23. I don't know what it is, but it's a significant chunk of money for a Championship club to spend on a Championship player. And he has been the best midfielder in the Championship. And I think pretty much everyone expected him to be going to the Premier League this summer. And I think in January, Porto had money on the table for him. I think they went up to sort of 13 million quid or 15 million euros in that range, for 12.5, 13 million quid, and didn't go there. And I think everyone's been waiting for them to come back. From what I gather, this money's sort of been sitting on the table since before the Euros, and now the Euros have been and gone. The Euros where he played a big part in a winning Championship side alongside Amari Hutchison in there. And yeah, it's just one, like I say, I spoke to a couple of Middlesbrough fans at the start of the summer, and it was very much, there's no way he'll go to a non-Premier League team. But there's no way you guys are dreaming if you think he's going to go to Ipswich. And I've been saying, look, we've obviously had some encouragement because we're really pushing at this, and we're the only ones with money on the table, and we're the ones that are pushing it. And they're there's still no way he's going to go there. And there's been a bit of a meltdown in the Middlesbrough forums about it, because they're talking about lack of ambition. But really, when you look at what you're spending, if you're talking about spending 18, 20 million quid, somewhere in that range, you're talking of wages and that sort of 30 to 40 grand a week, you are effectively paying a Premier League fee and giving him a Premier League contract. Yes, we might be in a Championship at the moment, but the contract offer is a Premier League contract offer. And if nobody else from that league is putting the money down, and they obviously aren't at the moment, and when you think, like, yeah, we're talking about this being a massive Championship fee. Well, in the Premier League, this is not a big fee, 15 million. This is a sort of squad player fee. Double this is a squad player fee for a lot of teams in there. So, yeah, it's really, really impressive if we get this one pulled off. And when you look at the sort of his stats over the last year, he is like the best midfielder at progressive. I've got sort of from FB Ref here, and it's sort of when you talk about percentiles where they are, passes attempted 96 percentile. So he is like the most frequent passer in the league. Progressive passes 99%, progressive carries 97%, successful take-ons 81%, touches 98%. This shot creating actions 92%. So this is an elite guy in a Championship, and I think, and that talking about all under 23 midfielders in Europe, nobody is playing more forward passes than him. Nobody's carrying the ball forward as much as this guy. No one's creating as much as this guy. And yeah, the whole of Middlesbrough runs through Hayden Hackney, and it did last year. And if we can get him into our team, we're going to be in a great position, because teams are going to be sitting in against us, and we're going to need these people that can unpick the lock, can drive forward with the ball quickly, can get the ball from our middle third to Amari Hudson, Jaden Philogene, Sam Smodics, George Hurst, get the ball up to them, or whether that's by beating a man or passing the ball to them. And this is what this guy excels in. And I say, I don't think anyone would have believed at the start of the summer, and now it feels like it's going to happen. It feels like, but it sounds as though he's down tomorrow. I think people have spotted a private jet leaving Teesside Airport to come to Stansted. So I don't know whether that'll be tracked.
Just a holiday maker, mate. He wants to cover a bit of warmth.
And coming down at like 1 p.m. and flying back at 11 p.m. that night, or something similar to that. I can't quote those accurately because I haven't been the one on Flight Radar looking at this, but it does seem like he is stalling on it, and I can see why, because if you come here, you probably price yourself out of a Premier League move if the worst happens and Ipswich don't go up next season, and we've paid 20 million for you and paying you 40 grand a week. It's quite difficult for a Premier League team to come and take you from this position, because we won't want to sell, because we'll want him here for the year after. So I could see why he wants to slow it down. But the Middlesbrough press is now saying they're down the line with a striker and another player, and it feels like they're almost relying on this fee to have the money to release the money.
Some funds.
And a lot of the deal has been talked about the structure of the deal, so that they can get the right money now, so that they can do their transfer business. So Ipswich are desperate for the move to happen. Middlesbrough, I guess, are now desperate for the move to happen. And he's in the middle, just, I guess, needing to make sure it's the right thing for him to do, rather than being bounced into something that maybe isn't in his best career interests. But I think once he gets here, I'm sure he's had a brilliant reference from Kieran McKenna for Michael Carrick. I'm sure they've spoken huge amounts on the phone and in person tomorrow as well. And I think he's Kieran McKenna's a difficult man to walk away from with regards to what he can do for your career. But I say it's a big decision for Hayden Hackney to make, and we all hope he makes a decision to sign here on the dotted line, and we see him lining up against Birmingham next week.
In terms of the financials, a quick one. David, thank you very much for your €10. We shall put it into the pot and pay a proportion of Hayden's wages for August, maybe. There are some people here, Paul and Trevor, mentioning that they still don't think he's going to come here. He's going to end up in the Premier League. Another one from Rob saying that, as you sort of say, his agent's trying to get a final bid in it having now gone. It's pretty much been nationally communicated that the bid and the level of the bid, albeit give or take a few million quid, has been accepted. But you would have thought, Joe, that we wouldn't have got this far down the line without there being a single inkling of another club being involved. It's not as if any other clubs have even been mentioned in passing as
I think it's
being involved.
Everton, West Ham and Crystal Palace have been the names that have come up a lot. But this we're talking about the agents trying to flush out some interest of the club. They've been trying to flush out interest in this deal for the last fortnight, and it was sort of pushed on Sky Sports a fortnight ago, and there's no interest. It's been in the Sun at the weekend. It's been pushed there. The agent's been pushing around as you'd expect to do. He wants to have all his options on the table before he makes a decision. I think everyone would expect to be in that position, would want to be in that position if it was themselves in this position, but for whatever reason, nobody's bitten on this yet, and it feels like maybe that there's some teams who maybe have them as Plan B or Plan C on his list, and they're trying to maybe sort of drag him along. Yeah, maybe try and sort of Hayden Hackney's camp might be trying to sort of force them to do something where the clubs are just trying to drag it along a little bit to keep him effectively on the hook in case their other targets don't come off. But it feels like it's coming to a head now, and I guess we should know within the next couple of days.
Yeah, hopefully so. But so yeah, fingers crossed. And if something does happen in the next 2 or 3 days or in the next week or two, you can be rest assured that we will be here to talk about it. But it does look on paper to be a very exciting signing. Whisper it, Joe. Does a potential centre midfield duo of Matusiwa and Hackney compare to previous incarnations of centre midfield duos in the centre of the park? Are we allowed to say that's potentially better than a Morsey Luongo circa 2 seasons ago?
I think you could say it's probably better than Morsey, Phillips and Kajus last season in the Premier League. I think you'd have a big argument it's a stronger midfield this season than what we had last season if we can get it over the line. I know we're going to need to add at least one more to it, because I don't think you could go in with just Taylor, Humphreys and Barbara as the backups to it. I think you need at least one more experienced body in there, because you're only one. We know how relentless the Championship is. You're only one injury away from really weakening your side. But yeah, no, that is a hell of a midfield partnership. It'll be a 26, 27 million pound midfield partnership as well.
Yeah, that's right. And then I was chatting to Oscar, my boy, who was sat the other side of me last night when we brought Philogene on for Jack Clark, and saying, remember when we were in the Premier League and we were bemoaning that so-and-so's bringing on a £60 million striker to replace their previous £80 million striker? Well, we're sort of now bringing on a £20 million winger to replace a 15, 16, 18 million pound winger in the Championship. And everyone's now going to be looking at us, as Ben often says on his channel, as the bad guys.
It's like the old Michelin Webb one, isn't it now?
Yes, indeed. Are we the bad guys? But as you rightly say, Joe, about in terms of further incomings, you would have thought, given that we had 5 centre midfielders last season, didn't we? Morsey, Luongo, Phillips, Kayust and Taylor. We're down on that. We've got fewer in the building than we did then. So yeah, you're looking at least 1, if not 2, to come in to make sure that
I'd say at least 2, if not 3. I'd probably say it's more those numbers, really, isn't it? We've lost 4 at the end of the day, haven't we? We've lost 4 and we've brought 1 in so far. So you're going to need to bring at least 3 in. Yeah.
Well, there's some names around. Jason suggesting his namesake, Jason Knight. I'd imagine it's a name that's well known, obviously, to Mark Ashton. And yeah, it's going to be another interesting few weeks yet. And there's some names that have been mentioned in passing. A couple of do we reckon, actually, to that point, centre midfield point, do we think our Mexican friend Marcel Ruiz, is that now dead in the Gulf of America?
Oh, you wanted to keep on Donald Trump's good side there with that, but
he's in the country, mate.
Yeah, well, he's up watching the Aberdeen game last week, wasn't he? Yeah, well, I wouldn't say it's dead, but it doesn't seem to be going anywhere quickly, does it? It might be that's a target for a later window. It might end up looking like that, but there hasn't been a huge amount of central midfielders names linked, has there? There's sort of Flynn Downs, but I think that was purely because we were linked to him in January. I don't know whether there's been any contact with him this window. Josh Brownhill was linked by Alan Nixon, but that was a few weeks ago, and he's now left Burnley, and it doesn't seem to be.
It looks expensive, though, doesn't it? That deal.
But at some point he's going to have to go somewhere, isn't he? But.
Yeah, but as things stand at the moment, it looks like a very expensive deal.
Yeah, I heard he was going to the MLS, so I don't know whether that is the case. But it does seem it does seem that there's minimal links to this, but then no one had mentioned Azor Matasuwa, and all of a sudden it broke in L'Equipe that the deal was done, and it was done.
Yeah, agree. Another name that's mentioned from Middlesbrough, actually, Dale Fry was linked to was mentioned in some of the Hayden Hackney news stories and articles, which may be linked to some whispers around this afternoon that one of your favourites, Joe, Luke Wolfenden, isn't entirely happy with his lot at Ipswich and his place in the pecking order, shall we say. But you would have thought that these things will happen as and when they need to happen, if you see what I mean. I don't think we'll proactively go out to look for another centre-half if we don't need to, but may need to keep, again, you say about people on radars, we need to keep them on the radar just in case we need to react and get some support and get some depth in the squad, say, should Wolfenden look to leave. But you can sort of understand it if these whispers are true. You can probably understand Luke Wolfenden's perspective.
Yeah. Well, but he only signed a new 2-year contract last year, and maybe he expected Darragh O'Shea to leave and him to get the nod ahead of him. But I don't think as a footballer you can have that mentality that, I think someone's going to go, so I'll sign a new contract. You sign a new contract, you think it's the right thing to do for yourself. So he's still got 2 years left on that. We sort of got the added complication in this league that you need to have at least one academy player named in your 25. So if we don't name Luke Wolfenden, then Cameron Humphreys would have to be in it. Otherwise, we'd only be able to name 8 subs in a matchday squad, because you've got to have one in there so you can have 8 subs and someone from the academy. But if you're doing that, you're effectively only having 8 subs, because we saw Tom Taylor and Somto Boniface on the bench for a dozen games between them last year, and none of them had a sniff of coming on. So they were just travelling there, and I think it'd be the same this way. I just don't see any way we'd sanction Wolfie leaving, no matter how annoyed he is with the situation that he's found himself in. And I could see why he is, but ultimately Darragh O'Shea is an upgrade on him, and you're talking about an Irish international with 35 caps who's played probably 70, 80, maybe even more than that Premier League games, and been a good player there. One who's just been given a 5-year contract, one who's about to be given the captaincy. So good luck getting past him. Yeah, I don't think he'll get past him. I guess the only option would have been had O'Shea ended up playing right back a bit more, but Wolfie will still play a big part next year. Yeah, agreed. Moving a little bit further up the pitch, a name that came out today, Ollie McBurney of Las Palmas in La Liga. He's a free transfer now, isn't he?
Oh, is he? That's where he was last season, was it?
Yeah.
I don't know how many boxes he ticks. He certainly probably doesn't tick the, is it the All Blacks policy? He may not tick that particular box. I won't go any further. But obviously we're on the lookout for strikers. Whether Ollie McBurney, who knows the Championship well, obviously is one of those, or whether that's an agent just getting his name out there to let everyone else in the Championship know that he's ready to head back to England.
But it's funny because there had been, I think he was linked. I think Nixon Alan Nixon put it in the weekend, and it was, I think, Swansea, Hull, and Ipswich were linked with him, and then Sheffield United were in talks with him this morning, and to the point where it said Sheffield United have made an offer to him. That is his former club, Sheffield United, who signed him for 18 million quid from Swansea a few years ago. So a team that knows all about him, and I think it's so I don't think this is agent putting a name about there, because his name is out there. He has got that. And Alan Nixon's update today was Ipswich are really pushing hard for him, and I think there's I'll talk about his character separately in a minute, but I think there's a lot of talk about when people say, "Oh, he's nowhere near good enough for us," and you think, well, his last, he had a tough year in La Liga last year, played for a team that got relegated, new environment. I didn't watch him out there, but the year before that, he started 15 games for Sheffield United in the Premiership, and this was a Sheffield United team who got 11 points today, or 12 points, and he scored 6 goals in 15 starts for them in the Premier League. The year before that, started 25 games for them in the Championship, scored 13 goals, and I'd been a bit sort of dry before then, but you look at his overall record in the Premier League, he's played 96 Premier League games, started 53, scored 13 goals. Yeah, well, it's not a brilliant goal record, but it is what you expect for a guy who's all those games have been for Sheffield United in the Premier League, and 2 of the seasons they've come bottom in. And in the Championship, 125 games, 87 starts, 44 goals. Well, you're talking about a goal every 45 minutes when it's 44 goals and 89.8 games. So he is like 1 in 2 in the Championship, and people.
But then our strikers don't score.
No, they're not goal scorers.
Weight of goals, are they?
And also, he is a really big player, good in the air, can bring players into the game, good pace, gets around the pitch well. So I think if you were to just look at him as a footballer, I think he's probably quite a good fit for our system, and I think he offers a good level of experience because people are talking about like we don't want Al Hamidi as backup. If we're going to sign someone like Richard Coney, that's a big jump to come up there, and we might need someone who's a bit more of a sure thing. And I think McBurney probably is that, but there is obviously character issues with him. I think he's had a drink driving conviction. He got an assault conviction, but one of those, that was the one on the pitch where the Nottingham Forest fans came on and taunted all the players, and I think he might have lamped one of their fans, I guess, at the City ground. It's sort of taken after Brian Clough lamping a fan running on the pitch. But the fans were coming on, and that was when there was a sort of real disgraceful players getting attacked on the pitch and stuff like that. So I'm not saying I give him a free pass for that, but it was a different situation. And I think there's been another assault incident in town. I think there's been a few issues off the pitch, but I say I was sort of in a sort of another group chat, and there's a Sheffield United fan in there. And when they were linked with Ollie McBurney, it was like his view was like, oh, if we can get Kiefer Moore to Wrexham and sign Ollie McBurney in, that will be such a massive upgrade for us to have in the squad. And this is someone who's watched Kiefer Moore all last season play for Sheffield United, who's watched Ollie. So it's not somebody who's just seen a few things. So I think he was So I can't talk too much about his legal side because I don't know all the details other than a quick flick on Wikipedia. But I think football-wise, I think it'd be definitely someone that is a big consideration. Not just he's someone who's over the hill and past it. He's what I've got his details up here. He's 28, yeah, no, 29. I think he is. June. He's 29 a few weeks ago, so he's not an old player, and I say he's someone that could still contribute here.
All I took from that is that Joe Fairs is happy. Is fair. All fans who enter the pitch are fair game to players. If you happen to invade the pitch at the end of a season, for example. One bit of news we do have here, actually, and who knows, Joe, Blanco Los G may have broken some exciting news for us. They live in Spain.
This was about a week ago. This Isaac Romero one, yeah.
Isaac Romero of Sevilla. Well, let us know if you know anything about him, Blanco. Just
the only thing I knew about him is when you looked at it and the Google translation. I don't know if the Spanish are as sort of blunt as maybe the Dutch are, but it was just like after a disappointing season or a down season, effectively. So they really laid into him for his season last year.
Oh well, we'll scrub it.
Sevilla had a big down season as it was. So,
right. Well, that's as much as we know about incomings. Any rumours about those now? Let's talk. Oh,
it does seem like the Rich Coney race is starting as well. Now he's someone we've been linked with a lot.
He's been linked with a lot, but he's been linked. No disrespect to the clubs he's been linked with, but he's been linked with what? Preston, Swans. Well, Swans have been spending a bit of cash, but yeah. Are we in the market for players who are League One players being linked to Preston? I don't know. Having looked at Hayden Hackney,
it's difficult, isn't it? Because George Hurst is. You need somebody of that level of George Hurst, but how do you sign a striker who's probably worth 15 million quid in this league? And I think there's the Millwall striker who's had a good season last year, Ivanovic, but he's been linked with a lot of clubs. But you're talking like 15 million. There's a Cardiff striker who got a lot of goals. He signed in January. Salek, I think it was. Who there's rumours that we'd put a bid in for earlier in the season. Whilst online, I haven't checked it, but somebody's messaged me saying apparently we're having a look at Colby Bishop again, which we had done previously. But how much of that is true, I don't know. I've not been able to look to see where that's from, but I think Colby Bishop is again like you talk about sort of Ollie McBurney as being a good fit for how he plays. I think Colby Bishop is another one, similar age, sort of 28, 29, and had I think it was his first season of the Championship last year with Portsmouth. Got a dozen goals for them. But again, is another player who could sort of put himself about, bring other players into play, work hard, and do it that way. And I know these guys, Colby Bishop, Ollie McBurney, aren't names that are going to excite Ipswich fans, but that if you want to take a flyer at someone like a Kone or an Ivanovic or someone like that, you probably need to have somebody who's a little bit more secure. Because if George Hurst goes down and you've got Kone and Al Hamady, you could be totally shocked.
Yeah.
Couldn't you?
Yeah, well, that was going to be my point. Is that if Hurst does go down, we hope he doesn't, but there's history there. I don't know if would you want McBurney relying on McBurney or Colby Bishop as your first choice? I don't know. It's tricky. As Joe rightly says, but then if we're willing to drop £20 million on a starting centre midfielder, do we all of a sudden find another 18-20 to find on a starting striker?
Yeah.
What a
And there's
conversation
like that
to be having, Joe.
Mark Guiu obviously is one that we liked. I think we tried to bounce that as part of the Liam Delap deal, but weren't able to get it done. And now I think we're still in for him, but I think Sunderland are potentially in for him.
Yeah.
But it's difficult because he probably wants to be in the Premier League, but it might be a better move for him to be in the Championship playing for a team who you're going to get a lot of the ball, you're going to have a chance to score some goals rather than just being in the Premier League in a side that's probably going to get dominated every week and you're going to get a few touches here and there and try and do something with it. But I guess it's very, very difficult to turn down that move if that is one of the options, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. Unfortunately, as we know, the Premier League is the Premier League. Yes, so that incoming's done. In terms of outgoings, as we spoke about while we were sat watching the match last night, the messages started coming through. And Ben spoke about it on his channel earlier. I watched it as quarter of an hour of Ben talking about Nathan Broadhead. So you can either imagine it was the Simon Bates Our Tune theme was playing in the background, or there was literally just a entirely black screen, and that was it 4 minutes 33 is that track, isn't it? Which just complete silence on Ben's channel for 15 minutes. Nathan Broadhead is one of Ben's favourites, but it appears that Nathan Broadhead could well be off to North Wales, because depending on who you believe, there has been a bid of around 7.5 million, which either has, according to the East Anglian, or hasn't, according to TWDD, been accepted by ourselves. Your views on this, Joe, in terms of the value, what we'd be losing, the potential gap that it leaves in our squad, and how do we fill it?
Firstly, obviously, Nathan Broadhead's a fantastic player, isn't he? He came in that January of the promotion season as one of the 4 signs in January that really fired us over the line, and hasn't really missed a beat from that point until the end of the Championship season. But it did feel as soon as we went up that we were just targeting players to replace him, where we weren't all the ones in those roles. And I think you can see that maybe he doesn't have enough off the ball for what we want. If we want to play a full 11 team athletic 1v1 battles, like I say, when you watch the Premier League games, it's 10 individual battles all over the pitch. I don't think he's maybe able to compete in those positions. On the ball, I think he's a Premier League player, but off the ball, he probably isn't. And he's got 1 year left in his contract. I don't think we can offer him a new contract. I don't think he's probably worth a 3 or 4 year contract to us as we are at the moment, because I don't think he's enough for where we want to be next season and for the seasons afterwards. So with 1 year left, if you can get a good fee for him, I think you've got to take it. It's because realistically, it's 7.5 million now or 0 next summer. Is he going to be the difference between promotion and not? I personally wouldn't say so. I think he's a fantastic player, but I think he's probably third choice for that left hand striker role, and Sam Smodics can also play in that role as well. So you've got 3 really good options there. If you can take this 7 million effectively, if you're giving all your new signings 4 or 5 year deals, that's like 30 million quid of fees that you can do because of the amortization of it. So if we sign Hayden Hackney, say that is 20 million on a 4 year deal, that's costing us 5 million a year. Well, Nathan Broadhead covers that totally in year one. So it just frees us up to do a lot more. And part of what we're going to have to learn as fans is there will be constant player trading, and you will have to sell some of your favourite players at times when it's the best time to sell them. And I think I find it difficult. I find it difficult to find an argument to not sell Nathan Broadhead if we can get that sort of money now, because I don't think he's a regular starter. I don't think he's going to get a new contract, and he's got 1 year left on his deal. And I think for him, I think it's a fantastic move. I think he started in the Wrexham Academy before he went to Everton. He moves back home effectively, and as their club record signing for what is a massive club. Sort of when you talk to sort of all the detail like Americans, and Wrexham are absolutely huge out there. I think it's maybe underestimated here just how big they are out there. And I think it's a great move for him, and I think it's probably a good move for the club. And we'd sort of wish him our best to move him on. But this time last year, in this window, he was effectively out the door when we were trying to sign Reece Nelson on transfer deadline day. Yeah. And he was driving down the A12 and literally stopped and turned around and went back to Fulham to sign for them instead of us. It was Nathan Broadhead who was leaving then to go to Sunderland. He wasn't going to be registered in the squad. I think Ipswich fans thought it was Ali Al-Hamadi who wasn't going to be registered, but it wasn't. It was Nathan Broadhead. He was on his way up to effectively, or not on his way up to, but he was going to sign for Sunderland then. So I guess it's difficult for him to come back from that with, it can't be great for his relationship with Kieran McKenna that he was effectively going to be out the door when he wanted to play Premier League football. I thought when he did get into it last year, he put in some good performances, scored a couple of good goals, West Ham, a really good goal away at Bournemouth in one of our only wins, and does contribute very, very well on the ball. But I don't think there's ever been any questions on that. And it's just the off-the-ball side that he wasn't able to improve enough, and he missed a lot of time with injuries, and he's sort of quite a fragile player, isn't he? And I don't think he's ever going to... Even in the Championship season, it did feel as though once you get to about 55 minutes in the game, he did seem to almost just fade out of it. But he was so good, he sometimes just got left on the pitch for it. But now you've got the other options now. They're so good and they don't fade out of it.
Yeah. Naughty Romeo. Welcome to James. You're just in time for us to almost say goodbye, but thanks very much for joining us. In terms of the comments in the chat, I popped a few of them up there, but I think pretty much everybody's of the same opinion, Joe, in that he's a good player. He's served us well. There's not much hate for Nathan Broadhead in the chat. However, if someone's willing to give you £7 million for a guy in the last year of his contract, it sort of seems to be pretty much a no-brainer and a good deal. One of those very, very rare occasions where it seems to be a good deal for all parties, doesn't it? Another, sort of related to Ipswich, Corrie and Darber has trodden that well-trodden path from Kilmarnock to Lecce and finds himself playing Serie A, I believe, next season. So congratulations to him. I don't know if we've got any sort of sell-on for that.
Yeah, well, you'd hope we did, because he wasn't out of contract when he left to join Kilmarnock. I think he went there on a free transfer, I'm pretty sure it was, but whilst he was under contract. So generally those sort of deals will be an undisclosed fee, but the undisclosed means that there's a sell-on fee in there or something to protect you in case they go on and do well. So you'd hope that we've got a small slice of that, whether it's 50k, 100k, it all helps, doesn't it?
Yeah, and funnily enough, one of my friends lives down near Lecce. It's his closest team, and we were looking to head in that direction maybe in January, February to take in a Serie A game. So I shall take one of Joe's Corrie and Darber shirts and get it signed for him.
Well, I'll expect you to be bringing me back a Lecce shirt with Indarber's name and number on the back of it.
Yeah, no worries. We'll see what we can do. In terms of, I think that's it. I think we're done. We've done Charlton. We've done potential incomings. We've done potential outgoings. As I say, as and when we get confirmation of any of those, Rich will have his finger on his klaxon, and we shall assemble to give you guys a live reaction show. In terms of shows, what we've got coming this week, a bit of housekeeping. The aforementioned Rich and Seb have done their 1 to 24 predictions. That will be out on Friday morning, so keep an eye out for that.
Spoiler alert, I can guarantee Rich wouldn't dare put Ipswich first because he hates superstition.
Yeah, because those things are definitely linked. In terms of flagship, I believe there's going to be a flagship on Sunday, given we are playing Auxerre on Saturday at 5 p.m. UK time. the guys will be back on Sunday night to talk about that. And then also, of course, if there's been any movement in terms of movement between now and then. And as I said at the very, very beginning, there's going to be more content coming out of the pod for the new season. If you want to keep up to date with that, then please do subscribe either to your podcast channels or your YouTube channel. Click the subscribe button, give us a thumbs up, etc., etc. A quick word about Telegram. It's on fire at the moment, Joe, and it's very, very busy. Pretty much 24 hours a day, transfer chat and general match chat and everything cricket related and everything there. So if you want to come and join us, please do on that. It's a good laugh. It's a very nice community. Blue Monday itfc.co.uk is our website. I'll have all the links to that, the Telegram link and all the various feeds, etc. So as I say, Rich and Seb, Friday morning, flagship, Sunday night. And all things being equal, we may be back this time next week. Joe, I think, is away on holiday, but there may be a new show next week, depending on how the news falls, really. But obviously, we'll have, building up to the Friday night match at Birmingham, aren't we? Crikey, we're almost there, people. We're almost back into the swing of the normal routine again. So thank you for your time, Joe. Thank you for everybody that's been in the chat. There's been lots and lots and lots of you there. Very much enjoyed it. So yeah, hopefully you can come and join us again live on Sunday night. Thank you for your time, Joe.
Yep. Thanks, guys.
Thank you again for everybody for joining us. This has been Blue Monday, an Ipswich Town podcast. We will see you next time.